Hello, everyone. I am delighted to be moderating today's session on the relationship and complementarity between submarine and terrestrial networks. My name is Mike Conradi. I am the co-chair of the International Telecoms practice at global law firm DLA Piper, and I'm pleased to be speaking to our panel today. I'd like to ask you to introduce yourselves. Perhaps we'll start with you, David.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, and welcome everyone to this webinar organized by Liquid Intelligent Technologies and kindly facilitated by Mike from DLA Piper. I am David Orin. I am the Group Chief Strategy Officer for Liquid Intelligent Technology and also the CEO of Liquid Dataport, our international wholesale business. Glenn?
Glenn?
Yes, I'm Glenn Mall. I've been involved in the telecommunications sector in Africa since around 95, 96, initially in operations, but for the last 10 years or so managing sales teams, wholesale sales teams across Africa, and engage mostly through the global carriers, hyperscalers. That's our route to market.
Thanks. And Dixit?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Dixit Shah. I am the head of operations for Dataport, and I have been, like Glenn, been in the industry for a very, very long time, starting from BT, and lastly, before Liquid was with Tata Communication, looking after Africa and Europe. I've been involved in product and pricing and operations, so I'm heading up the operations team.
Great, thank you. So my first observation is, you guys have done a very high-profile rebranding not that long ago, still. So I would want to ask you, David, how's that going? Do you think it's been successful? What were your aims with that rebranding?
Yes, thanks, Mike. Yes, indeed, we rebranded what was Liquid Telecommunications to Liquid Intelligent Technologies a few months ago. This is really reflecting the fact that we've massively expanded the kind of services that Liquid Intelligent Technologies is able to offer across the African continent. We're definitely not only a telecommunication operator anymore, but we've got a suite of services from data centers to cloud, Microsoft services, AWS services, and also cybersecurity. And that is becoming a growing part of our DNA, our teams, our expertise. So it was important for us to make sure that the market recognizes that there is so much more that they can get from Liquid Intelligent Technologies than just connectivity. So this is going well. Of course, we've had a lot of coverage from this rebranding, a lot of interest, a lot of questions from customers. And I think we're on a good way. Thanks, Mike.
No, thanks. And Glenn, I wonder if you could tell us a bit about Liquid's recent activity on the submarine side. What investments have you made and what's going on?
Yeah, so we're getting to a stage around the east and west coast of Africa where we're starting to see some cables nearing end of life, some cables reaching saturation, and there are a few upgrades coming, but those upgrades are not going to be too material in terms of capacity around the continent. And so the new cable systems that are being driven by the hyperscalers are going to be opening up massive amounts of capacity along the east and west coast of Africa. And for us, this is the opportunity for Liquid to actually match that investment, to bring that capacity inland, and not leave it, if you like, lying at the landing stations. Our role is to actually take this capacity, take it into the continent to be able to serve the continent. And so our investments are aimed at actually finding out where there are pockets of population that require this capacity and building out to those pockets, if you like.
No, thanks, Glenn. I'm going to be returning to that shortly. But before we do that, Dixit, I wonder if you could tell us a bit about some of the services that Liquid is offering, and what innovations are you bringing to the market?
Yeah, so you look, we offer the traditional services, which are the connectivity services for our wholesale customers and enterprise customers, layer 2 Ethernet services. And the other thing, which is really the main thrust and the drive for everyone, really, and also hyperscalers and also MNOs, is really the internet, right? Everybody wants the internet. Everybody wants to access the internet, whether it's through their devices in their hand, mobile devices, to home users, also enterprises who want to connect into the internet. So we offer DIA and broadband services, and also IP transit. So we sell IP transits to the multinationals and ISPs who really do take the services and deliver it to the end consumer. So those are the main key services. And we have plans for new services which are being rolled out right now. SD-WAN, which is again using broadband and connecting up enterprises into their network. The other key things, as I think David mentioned, is we're moving into security. All of these things are all bedrock for taking what of our connectivity, our internet accesses, and then taking us to the next layer. And then all of this complexity adds challenges to all the and headaches to all the information officers, right? So security is the next thing, because as soon as you start opening up more ports on your network, more hackers find it attractive. So we're layering security as well on top of that. And from our side, we're also launching DDoS soon. So that's coming up to protect the network and protect the connectivity for the customers. So those are the key products and services. And just to add one more little bit is, how do we make it easy for customers to buy from us? So we are looking at and developing portals so that customers can get quick quotes from us, and if they want to, they can actually order from us online as well. So some other customer-facing innovations that we're working on to make it easier for customers to come on board.
And it strikes me, in other contexts, companies that used to be branding themselves as telecoms operators have rebranded and gone into digital services and content. Is that something that Liquid thinks makes sense?
Let me answer, and then I'm sure the others will have a comment on it. So I think we are not directly into content ourselves. We do have CDN in our network, and we do offer content as well, and we're hosting content. We rely on a lot of our peering that we do to bring a lot of the content and make it available to all of our customers. I think that's the key for us. We have an open peering policy, which allows us to connect to a lot of other ISPs and also content providers. So we are really acting as a facilitator for a lot of people rather than being the sole custodian of content.
So you don't arrange the content yourself, but you provide connectivity for content providers. I get that.
Yeah.
So, David, submarine and terrestrial fibers, as we've heard, Liquid's USP really is about bringing those together. So can you tell us, how do you think about future investments in subsea, and how does that match terrestrial fiber investments?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I mean, I think Glenn made a great introduction to the way we see things. It's really for us to be able to invest both on the submarine side for international connectivity to Europe, to the US, to Asia, and bringing those continents together through Africa, and also to invest in the rights area in terrestrial fiber, so that this capacity can actually take an inland to landlocked countries, to landlocked towns and villages, and not leave that capacity, sometimes terabytes of capacity at the cable landing station, and not really being able to leverage this. We've invested recently in the Google-sponsored Equiano cable on the west side of Africa that goes from Portugal to Nigeria and then to South Africa. And in all those 3 locations, we're going to be able to land those terabytes of capacity But what is really important for Liquid is the ability to go across those cable landing stations. And I think we'll have to come back to that on cross-connect prices that have been slowing down our effort to bring capacity inland. And really interconnect the submarine cables to a robust meshed fiber terrestrial network. We have communicated a lot about the extent of our fiber network across Africa, with 100,000 kilometers of fiber, both long haul, metro, but also local fiber networks connecting buildings, connecting homes, to bring broadband and digital services to everyone. We will continue investing in both subsea cables and terrestrial network. Every year, Liquid invests between $150 and $200 million in its network. So it is a very significant amount of money to go into backbones and local fiber. And we plan to continue doing that and to really monetize this investment through partnerships and classic commercial arrangement with our customers, so that we're able to continue investing, in particular in West Africa, which is for us a very important part of the continent.
Thanks. So we've heard you're making significant investments in terrestrial fiber in Africa. So that must be, Glenn, I think, because you want to bring connectivity to Africa, which makes me think that perhaps there's less of a reason in investing in the submarine cables for a business case of bringing capacity from Asia to the US, because you could do that via a submarine route going around the continent, and it would be a lot cheaper, wouldn't it? So what's the am I thinking about this right, or have I? What's the business case?
Yeah, I think historically, when you introduce a new route, it's not always going to be. It certainly doesn't start off being the cheapest. It's a new route. It's unique. It attracts quite a lot of attention, and our routes across Africa are doing exactly that. And whilst it may be cheaper to go around Africa, it certainly is longer. And so from a network design point of view, network engineers are looking at all of these factors, not just the cost, but also how long it takes, the round trip delay for packets. And if you're able to now cross Africa instead of go around it, I think that offers opportunities for companies who are landing on either coast to reach the cable systems on the other side of Africa by traversing across the continent. And as we progress, we will see. I mean, you see it with all charts that you see from telegeography and all the other analysts. They show you consistently how pricing drops over year on year for services, and when we expect to see exactly the same on these routes as well, and that will drive more and more interest.
But what strikes me as that we quite often advise investors into fibers, and the people who are investing in, especially people who are used to investing in terrestrial fibers, when they see exactly what you just said, that the price for capacity on submarine systems at least tends to fall very rapidly, they run a mile. I've seen them. So, oh my gosh, that's frightening, that kind of price drop. So, what would you? But obviously, Liquid isn't frightened by that. Do you see that as an investment opportunity?
Well, I think we bring quite a few partners along the way. I mean, if we look at Africa, it's a mobile continent. A lot of the access onto the internet is through handsets, not necessarily through desktops or anything like that. So there's a huge drive from the mobile network operators to grow their market share and to grow their eyeballs and their ARPUs, etc. in Africa. And so we partner with them. So when we build a route to any particular location, we're always looking for partners to take up early bandwidth opportunities. Whether that's dark fiber, whether that's sometimes even a duct, or maybe it's just some wavelengths. We will always look to bring these partners along with us, and help us bring the break-even date of any cable system, bring it much closer. So it's not a 25-year break-even. It's we're bringing that a lot closer, so that by the time the price declines start to impact, we've recovered a lot of our investment, through these relationships, and all parties can accept that price decline is inevitable, but it's not terminal.
So the inland terrestrial fibers you're bringing, it sounds like there's a bit of a difference between what you're doing in Africa and the investment we're seeing in Europe. So in Europe, we're seeing billions of euros or pounds or whatever currency being invested in building fiber to the home. So it's a complement to mobile connectivity. But what you've just said is it's different in Africa. It's the mobile networks that are driving the demand, and the fiber presumably to connect their base stations. Is that right?
It's a combination, Mike, because we are seeing mobile operators form a strong customer base in each of these countries, but they also have a requirement for home users, and so the whole fixed mobile kind of argument, and so depending on which country we're in, we have rolled out fairly extensive fiber to the home, and got some anchor tenant clients on those initiatives. So it varies, and in Africa, because it's 54 countries and different regulatory environments and licensing, and so it varies very much in terms of what we will be able to do in each country. But where there's an opportunity to follow a fiber to the home strategy, we are doing that alongside the mobile providers. And so it isn't just around the eyeballs on a handset; it is the home providers as well.
Yeah, look, let me just add to that. Really, I think as Glenn mentioned, the capacity coming from the sea is getting cheaper. The price per meg is becoming cheaper, and therefore that actually lends itself really well to the fiber that is going to be dug and installed within the countries to start reaching the consumers. And initially, like everything else, it's always going to be the business side of the consumer. The business enterprises will benefit from first, because that's where the money is, that's where the investment goes. Then the next step is the consumer going, and luckily in Africa there has been a springboard, right? The copper wire never got installed, and it always got ripped out and used for something else. So now it's gone fiber, which is the good news. And what that enables is, like we do in Europe and everywhere else, which is what's driving that? It's the internet. Again, it's the content, it's the streaming, it's the Netflix, it's Apple TV. A lot of those type of things are going to be driving YouTube. That traffic is what's going to drive the home consumer market. And that's what we want to enable. We enable it on our own. We also want to enable our partners. And our ISPs that we sign up, we want to enable them. The other bits which are driving all of these things is the education sector, the government sector, because all of these governments want to start investing in their youth in Africa. They want to make sure that they are educated, they have access to the latest technology. We want to enable all of that as well. So a lot of things are coming together at the right time to make sure that we are able to deliver the capacity that's coming on the shores, inland, and make it available to all the people that need to have it, from education, government, medical, all of those. So it's going to drive a lot of economies that drive the usage.
I see. And David, you touched on what you said earlier on cross-connect prices. It strikes me that the high cost of connecting terrestrial networks to one another is one of the biggest obstacles to developing the telecoms infrastructure in Africa. So I wonder if you could expand on that a bit. Like how is that changing and what's driving that? And are you confident it's going to be sustained?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I mean, historically, we faced two kind of problems to roll out in large internet backbones in Africa. The first one was at the cable landing station. with consortium members extracting sometimes very high rents on cross connects between the subsea cable and the terrestrial fiber networks. And I'll come back to that, but that's going to change very radically in the next few years. And the second challenge has always been to cross-border. Even at Liquid's history is littered with stories of how we've actually managed to cross those borders and to actually interconnect countries together with fiber instead of very low speed microwave links. Sometimes the border is a river, and we've got to cross it physically. There's a challenge. Sometimes the border is not very difficult physically, but the regulatory regimes, the authorizations, the security concerns have got to be dealt with, and eventually people get comfortable with it. So for Africa, 54 countries, as Glenn reminded us, there's a lot of work to be done, especially for landlocked countries, to get access to the submarine cables and to international connectivity. And sometimes it means that the prices are still high. In Kenya, you can probably get IP transit between $1 and $2 per meg. In South Africa, probably lower than $1 per meg. But in a country like DRC, you're probably still at $25 or $30 a meg for large capacity. So there's a very large discrepancy between what different countries can actually experience, and we're working on that. This is our mission, to build those networks, to interconnect them together, and to bring economies of scale and volume to the market so that we are competitive and those prices go down over time.
So if I've understood right, you can reduce the exposure to cross-border connections by building your own. So you're connecting two different liquid networks in two different countries. You don't have to pay high international connection fees.
Indeed, that has been our strategy for the last almost 15 years now. We've expanded our network from country to country, and being able to be the party on both sides of a border has helped tremendously, because you only have one operator and the margin only stacks once, not twice or three times. And today you can actually go from Mombasa to Luanda, so across the entire continent, cross 5 or 6 countries, and you're only on Liquid Telecom network, which has a great appeal in terms of quality, in terms of control, but also in terms of price. Because as you control the infrastructure and you control both sides of the border 5 or 6 times, you're able to do a package instead of dealing with several vendors and being very complicated. But to come back to your initial question on cross connects at the cable landing station side, those cross connects are still high today, especially on the east side of the continent. Some countries are still really burdened by cross connect, and then sometimes to go from one international destination into the country, you pay more cross connect fees than you actually pay the subsea cable operator to bring the capacity from thousands of kilometers away, and it's actually the last 30 centimeters, the last foot of cable that costs you more, which is not sustainable in the long term. And what we're seeing is that the new cables, like Equiano in particular, and eventually other cables on the east side, like to Africa, Peace and Dare and so forth, are going to really change that. The conditions to be a landing party for those new cables is such that the cross-connect fees are practically going to be zero.
I've seen in our work that what you're saying is borne out, that particularly the cables that have where there's big hyperscalers as investors, they want to ensure their landing stations are open access, and they fix or they take measures in the contracts to reduce the cross-connect fees. But underlying it all, it seems to me that the fundamental issue is if there's only one company that's allowed to be the landing party in that country, then they're in a position to charge high fee, no matter how much pressure Google or Facebook tries to put on them. Excuse me.
Yeah, so I agree with you, and I think Google and other OTTs are very much aware of that, and they have entered into strategies where the fiber is actually taken away from the cable landing station and reaches the data center. So we see in Lagos, for example, there are going to be a very high-speed connection of fiber connection between the Equiano cable landing station and our own ADC Lagos data center. And people will be able to go to ADC in Lagos and actually pay the usual cross-connect fee for a data center, which may be like $50 or something like that, and avoid any temptation for the landing party in Lagos to charge any significant fee, because actually the interconnection does not happen at the cable landing station anymore, but at the data center, as it is the case in Europe, in the US, in Asia, and so forth. So we're really putting Africa on the same global standard now. We're bringing those best practices to avoid the problem that have been really challenging for us until now.
I mean, it's really interesting you're doing that, and I can see how it could work in Nigeria where there's competition. I was thinking if you wanted to do the same in a market where there's less competition, if you want to do it in Ethiopia, it might be more difficult to achieve because the incumbent will just charge you for the bit that they're doing no matter what. In any case, there must be many challenges in building a terrestrial network across a continent. Glenn, I wonder if you can tell us about any of those. If you've got any examples of war stories of issues you faced.
Yeah, I think building across the continent is challenging. I mean, I know we jokingly sometimes say, putting the wet segment in is the easy part of the network, and I'm sure the wet segment guys would disagree with that. But the difficult part is we cross if you've traveled much in Africa, you'll know that it is a very challenging environment. It has mountain ranges, it has jungles, it has very wide rivers, it has deep rivers, it has fast flowing rivers, it has rebels, fighting in different countries. It has a multiple of challenges that we have to overcome when we put a cable system in place. And I think it's experience for us. We've been doing it for 15 years. So for us, when we hit an obstacle like that, it's not something that stops us building. It's something that says, okay, how did we resolve this last time? What do we need to change here? How do we engage with this group of people, this organization, this challenge, and overcome that? So all of those geophysical, geopolitical kind of challenges are not new to us anymore, and it's something that we've been doing for a long time. I'm not saying it's easy, by the way. It's
sure
hard.
It's not. I'm sure that's a key part of the value you're offering. Is how to do that with other people don't.
I've got a good recent story about those challenges for you, Mike.
Great.
And our listeners. People probably remember that a few months ago, there was a very large eruption in the northeast of DRC near Goma, and the Goma city itself had to be evacuated because the lava was practically going through villages around the periphery of Goma, which is a big town, many big towns in DRC. And we were at that time building a metro network in Goma and starting the build between Goma and Kananga, which is right in the middle of the country, about 1,000 kilometers away. So the challenge for us in Goma was that all our equipment to build this fiber network was actually stored in a warehouse in Goma, which was not very far from the lava flows. We also had, of course, people, tens of people, doing the logistics, and thousands of people preparing to actually go and dig along that segment. And if people remember and listen to the stories, there's a lake near Goma, and there was extremely concerning stories about the lava actually going into the lake and actually fumes, going into the atmosphere and potentially being very toxic. So what we had to do was to take all our equipment and all our people and relocate them about 100 kilometers away towards Bukavu, another big town that we need to build up as well. And that was done in a matter of days. And I think it shows the experience, the reliability, the endurance of our teams in DRC, but also supported by other countries, that they're able actually to deal not only with regulatory, with paper to be pushed and so forth, but actually events like this.
No. Wow.
It can be a volcano. Tomorrow is going to be wild animals that are roaming around a manhole that we need to fix. It can be, as Glenn said, it can be a river flowing too rapidly for us to be able to cross it with our fiber and having to hang on poles between each side. And the list goes on and on. But Africa is a fantastic continent for that. The stories and the successes that we can get out of this makes the story fantastic.
It's amazing. So certainly, speaking as a paper pusher myself, I can certainly see when we're working on contracts to build infrastructure in London, we haven't got to worry about volcanoes erupting and wild animals by manholes. It's a completely different environment. But we talked a bit about some of the practical challenges of actually how do you build in some of these environments. So, and as a lawyer, I'd be remiss without pointing out that it seems to me there's also legal challenges in Africa that don't apply elsewhere. So, I mean, if you've got to cross the jungle, you've got to work out whose permission you need, and if maybe are there any landowners, and I mean, how do you do that? What do you do around the legal challenges? Any of you?
I think there are multiple options there. I think Liquid aims to make a difference in Africa. So if we go into a certain territory and it's one of those that there's elders that run the village and they're responsible and they might want to know what's in it for them, Liquid is very keen to improve the as our route goes through Africa or across Africa, improve the lot of people, improve what's happening there. So we will look to see, okay, how can we are we able to make a spur here and enable free internet for any schools that are available? Are we able to actually perhaps even assist with renovating or building a school as part of that process to actually improve so that the local people don't see this as any kind of incurrence in their day-to-day lives. They actually see this as a positive outcome for everyone. And so I think from our point of view, it's very important that we ensure that there's a positive outcome for everyone along the route that we build a cable. And so we always have to engage with all of the parties along the way and participate in those kind of initiatives that ensure that the outcome it doesn't just benefit one party, that everyone along the route benefits from this.
I see. No, interesting. Thanks. We talked about quite a lot of the investment that's gone onto the coasts, and it strikes me that there's still a challenge in bringing connectivity from east to west. So, Dixit, I wonder if you could tell us what are the possible routes that you could use to achieve an east to west protected network. To go around the continent, to go through it. What do you suggest?
So look, we have been looking at various options to go from east to west. So, our main location is Mombasa at the moment, where quite a few of the cables are landing, which is Seacom, Easy, Teams, and now Dare, and a few others are coming. So that's a key hub to get out of for a lot of these cables. So they want to go, and we are looking at going from that route. If people know the geography, you go from Kenya to Uganda to Rwanda, and then meets up with the DRC. We can go across that way. The other route is, bordering Kenya is Tanzania, so we're enabling, and we have already activated capacity, which goes from Kenya through Namanga, through Tanzania, into Tanzania through Dar as well, and also crossing the country into Tunduma, which borders with Lusaka, Zambia. So we take it to Lusaka and then onwards across towards the DRC and also towards Angola. And we also take it from Zambia through Zimbabwe into South Africa. So we're not only crossing east to west, but also going downwards towards South Africa. Those are the key routes. The other one, which is also one we are keen to look at and we're working on, which is the Port Sudan, going from Sudan through Chad into Cameroon and exiting on the west coast as well. So those are the key three main routes within South Africa. We also have one which goes on the east coast of South Africa and exits on the west coast, rather than going around the Cape. We go through it. So there are multiple routes we're working on. All of them come with varying degrees of challenges. Some we are fortunate enough to have our own build and on dig, and so we control all of it. And the others are a little bit more challenging, but we're working through partners to enable all the connectivity and bringing partners on the ecosystem as well. And this is, we talk about east to west, we've got to be very clear, it's west to east as well, right? So here we're now trying to see how we can create an ecosystem, a commercial ecosystem within the country as well. So we don't not only transiting, but we want to encourage businesses to talk to each other and open up economies within as well, rather than just across and enabling others. So some of the key routes, those we are working on right now.
And can you offer a kind of integrated service where the customer just says, I want a connection between these 2 points, and it's up to you, Liquid, how to achieve it, and I want to make sure that it never goes down, so you can have protected circuits across 4 different routes, and any one of them at any one time will work. Is that something
that is our ultimate plan, Mike, really to get there. At the moment, we have a few routes which are potentially single points of failure. So we need to see how we connect up. I think within the next 6 to 12 months, I think we will achieve what you are mentioning, which is we can take you east to west on a protected, diverse, resilient path, and we can guarantee repair times and all of those, and guarantee availability. Those things are coming. I think we watch this space, I think, is the only thing I can say. We're working hard.
If you can guarantee repair times, that will be quite extraordinary in such a challenging environment.
Exactly.
That's an amazing thing to be able to do. David, I wanted to ask you that we've talked a bit about the hyperscalers and the big internet companies and their importance. And I think that drives a lot of, even if it's unstated, where you're talking about people wanting internet access, what they want internet access for is YouTube and Facebook. And they've obviously been big investors on the submarine side, and I think to a lesser extent on the terrestrial side as well. Is that right? And do you see them as partners, or are you worried that they might start competing with you?
No, I don't think we are worried that the OTTs are going to compete with us on the connectivity side or on the service side. I mean, they've got a business model that is so vastly different than ours that I think we really complement each other. We've got the same overall vision and objective, which is to connect as many people as possible on the African continent. And we've started working with them in many different ways. Of course, I mentioned the partnership with Google to bring the Equiano cable in Nigeria and in South Africa. And we're working with them to see if we can land that cable in different other places. For example, the DRC and also in West Africa. With Facebook, we've announced a broad partnership recently to fund new fiber backbones in different countries of Africa, and I think that shows that the OTTs are interested in helping the development of those inland fiber network, because they realize that the challenge is just too big for one company. Liquid Telecom is the largest cross-border fiber network in Africa by far, but we still are, at the very beginning of the story as far as Africa is concerned, I believe. So we developed those partnerships with the OTTs, with other companies as well, with existing local fiber network companies, operators, ISPs, mobile operators, and we sometimes co-build together. We share the investment, we share the risk, like we're doing right now in the DRC between Ngoma and Kananga, which is the network I mentioned earlier. And all those partnership with the OTT in particular are very important for us. They do not only bring money to build subsea cables and terrestrial network. Of course, they bring the content, they bring the services that people want to access to, be it a Facebook, a WhatsApp, a Microsoft 365 account, an AWS virtual platform or VM, and we're developing our investment and our assets to leverage those capabilities and to bring them to as many people as possible. One thing that is important for OTTs is to develop not only the inland terrestrial fiber network in Africa, but also their global network. And you talked about the east-west route with Dixit a few minutes ago. They are very interested in that east-west route because for them, they are looking at the continental view as well. And a lot of their traffic on the continental scale is from Asia to the US. If you look at the telegeography reports that Glenn mentioned, the vast majority of the internet traffic between continents, and in particular Asia to US, is actually content on OTTs. And we are talking to them about enabling a new route between Asia and the US via Africa, with those protected routes that Dixit described, so that they have an outlet with avoiding all the bottleneck in the Middle East and potentially even Europe to be able to connect those continents together. For us, it's very important because we complement, the global transit investment with the local investment. We can actually build an east-west route that is maybe 4,000 kilometers long, and at the same time, we build the metro networks, the fiber to the tower, the data center, and we bring a whole lot of local services to the landlocked countries, to the villages that have never had internet before. So we complement the vision of leaving no one behind in Africa and bringing connectivity to everyone with this global approach to build the internet at a global scale.
Amazing. That was very exciting. All right, well, I think that is just about all we have time for. So just like to say thank you to the three of you. It's been a really interesting conversation for me, and I'll have to go back and revise my contracts and building in Europe to include, the risk of volcanic eruption. But thank you very much for your time. It's really interesting. I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Mike.
It was a pleasure talking to everyone, and thanks to the audience for following us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.